Hi, my name is Michael Felker, one of the clinical researchers here at the Duke Clinical Research Institute, and I'm excited to be joined today by my friend and colleague, Adrian Hernandez, and we're going to talk a little bit about changes in the research ecosystem as it relates to traditional clinical trials and also pragmatic clinical trials and real-world evidence. So welcome, Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
It seems like we're at kind of an inflection point over the last several years in the way clinical research is done, from an era when we were really focused on randomized clinical trials as the foundational way of generating evidence, to now there's all these additional aspects of evidence generation around real-world data, pragmatic trials, registry-based trials. And I think it's created some interesting opportunities, but also some interesting challenges for us. So I wonder, just in general, how you sort of view the landscape from your perspective of how this change is happening.
Yeah, so there are really kind of two things at play. So one is that the cost of trials has really grown over the last number of years, and so it's a complexity, which is actually driving the cost of trials. And then on the other hand, people want more answers to important questions, and also speed up the development or the potential indications for new medical products. And alongside that, we've seen transformation in terms of healthcare systems, where there's greater access to data, greater engagement of patients directly, and the ability to hopefully make things simpler. So you have this great problem, which is costs of trials and how long it takes, and then this changing in the ecosystem in terms of how care is being delivered, and can you take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned that is an interesting challenge and opportunity is the transformation of healthcare systems in terms of access to their own data. As you know well, one of the challenges is the way we collect data clinically is often not very well structured to be used for research, but that seems like a real opportunity. If you think about clinical care at a big health system like Duke, the ability to have what's been termed a learning health system, where we're actually testing questions and trying to learn from the actual way we practice, seems like an untapped resource and opportunity.
That's exactly right. So like as healthcare systems are actually trying to get smarter about the care that they deliver for their patients and the population, how do you take advantage of that for actually embedding research in that and actually using the healthcare systems to really power clinical trials? And if you think about this, this gets to the context of what FDA is very interested in. What's fit for purpose? So for certain outcomes, it's already available in the clinical care setting. So why not take advantage of that? But there may be other things that you have to do more directly in a traditional mode, or directly with patients to collect certain information that's not part of routine care or is not systematically part of that. And so that's kind of where things have to be hybridized from what's traditional to what's actually being done as part of clinical care, and doing a trial that's fit for purpose, taking advantage of data and care delivery and processes that are part of routine healthcare.
And it seems like a lot of these more pragmatic approaches, both for the trial conduct and also for the patient, have the potential to accelerate some of the challenges that we've seen in traditional trials in the United States, especially. You mentioned the expense, slow enrollment, very long timelines. So do you think the traditional randomized clinical phase 3 clinical trial that we sort of think of is, you think that's on its way out, or you think there's always going to be a role for that kind of evidence generation?
No. So I think one of the things that we've learned through all this is one size does not fit all. And so there's actually a spectrum of learning as you learn about a condition or a novel therapy. So you want to know everything about it before it reaches the public. And so for clinical development, as people progress from phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials, you're still going to have to collect lots of information about what's happening in that context. But as you have more information, then you should be able to narrow down and take advantage of what's available routinely. How do you actually do studies more conveniently at someone's home or in their own experience, and then be able to be more tailored in terms of what's the additional information that you need to collect and how you do so.
In some ways this is exciting, but it's also a lot more complex as you think about generating evidence around, across a range of circumstances around a particular disease or particular intervention, it seems like this is where a place like DCRI can really add value because we have expertise across certainly traditional clinical trials, but also a lot of these new technologies with wearables, real-world data, learning health systems, and the ability to bring that all together in one place seems like going to be critical as clinical research moves forward.
Right, and I wish there was like an easy button because you just press and say, here's my pragmatic trial, or an easy button for that traditional trial. But if you think about pragmatic trials and where they're going, trying to fit closer into the real world, there's nothing better than actually the clinicians as part of DCRI understanding what's happening in the healthcare system, like what can work, what's actually not going to work, what's going to be a good quality, and then what will actually generate a trustworthy answer. And the same thing with patients that we engage with as part of our research and our care. Like, think about that user experience and like how they would walk through a clinical care system and how different it would be from a research study, and how could you merge the two?
Yeah, I think this is something we could really learn from some other areas of medicine like oncology, where often research and clinical care are more tightly integrated, and sometimes, certainly in cardiovascular, where you and I both work, we've sort of seen those as two separate enterprises, which is a very inefficient way to proceed. It seems like the other aspect of this is it's not really a strict dichotomy between traditional trials and pragmatic trials. Even for trials that are kind of traditionally structured, there's a lot of opportunities to leverage other data sources in identifying patients or in follow-up or ways to make those trials more efficient and hopefully faster, and we get answers more quickly for our patients.
Yeah, no, exactly right. So it's just actually taking account of what's the objectives, what's the end user experience, and then also thinking creatively, like how can you streamline and ideally, make clinical trials simple, frictionless, and maybe even fun for everyone.
I think it's a really exciting era in some ways. Like all changes, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of uncertainty, but I think the key is to try to figure out how we can turn those challenges into new opportunities to answer questions in a better, more effective, more efficient way.
Exactly. And learn as we go and share the knowledge with everyone.